to create a CI/CD setup for them to deploy their changes. So hi guys, those who joined now. So I was talking about the today's session where mostly it will be on the fundamentals of SDLC, CI/CD, and little bit about the Linux concepts, and then little bit about the Git uh, uh, basic concepts, and then ML syntax we'll discuss, and then finally the Java folder structure we need to understand as a DevOps engineers. So without delay, let's get started. Just confirm in the chat whether you are able to hear me properly and whether you are able to see the screen. Please confirm. Okay, great. Yeah. So everything starts from the SDLC. What I meant was, so they did, like any feature or any application that the company wants to develop. So they need to have a plan that needs to be implemented to have their product seamlessly deployed. I mean, the multiple features, like it's not like one go that they deploy the changes, but they need to follow a cycle that goes through different phases of the SDLC. So the first plan, I mean, the first phase is obviously the planning phase. So the planning phase is kind of where the Scrum Master and uh, and multiple DevOps, I mean, developer folks, they sit together and then they collect requirements from the stakeholders. Basically, what the scope of the work, and also what user stories, epics that we need to create as part of the implementations. And also, Scrum Master will play a vital role in terms of creating the backlogs, creating the user stories. So one thing we need to understand, so in startups, mid companies, both DevOps engineers and developers. So both of them will work together. So the cursor is having issues. Yeah. So both of the developers and DevOps will work in the software development lifecycle where they will have a common Jira dashboard. But most of the MNC companies, we don't actually part of their sprint process basically. So the DevOps will have a separate sprint process, DevOps or SRE or cloud engineers, and the developers will have a separate sprint process. So in my like my couple of projects that I worked, so we work on sprint basis. The sprint is basically we work on 2 weeks. So in these 2 weeks, we will get the user stories that get assigned. So these user stories related to setting up the CI/CD pipeline, setting up the infrastructure using Terraform, of creating multiple AWS resources or Azure resources. And then we also get some ad hoc request. Let's say we have implemented some CI/CD pipeline already that went to trial production, and there are a couple of bugs that found by the developers or the issues that we got from multiple teams who are consuming the CI/CD pipeline. So we basically create a user stories for the bugs that we found in the CI/CD pipeline, because every time you create a CI/CD pipeline, it's not the end product that we actually deliver, because it is kind of a cycle. For example, if first you create a CI/CD pipeline with the minimum VL product, which means that it only have the functionality of the basic stuff. But as we go, right, so the Scrum Master or the product owner will basically ask us to implement multiple features around this CI/CD pipeline. For example, they want to have the unit test be displayed on the dashboard wherever you are running the CI/CD workflow, and also they want the dashboard to have the sonar report, and also they need us to have a dashboard to see the any vulnerabilities found on the image scanning. So it's kind of a dashboard that we give to the developers for finding the bugs early in the CI/CD pipelines. So all these features, it's not like, I mean, it's impossible to implement in the first phase of the process, right? So every bug that found by the developers, we try to fix it. And for those specific bugs, we create a user stories. And also for each of the user story, we will have at least the scope defined. First, we'll have a description of the user story, and then we will have a acceptance criteria. So what exactly the implementation should look like, and the implementation that we are going to deploy should match the user story. So that is gonna be discussed, and then the scope, like the points, like story points. So for story points is related to like how much time does actually the story like takes. For some stories it will take 1 to 2 days, and some stories it will take 1 week, and some stories it will take 2 weeks, which is more like the points. For example, 8 for 1 week it will be like 5, and 1 or 2 days it will be like 1 or 3. So depending upon the score points, they will allocate the user stories. And in my project, we will not exceed more than 10 points. So all the scope of the works we uh, work on within the sprint of 10 points will not exceed, because if it is exceeded, the scrum master will come into picture and they'll tell us like you have a over stories assigned to you that might have issues with the your delivery of the stories, because you need to prioritize your stories. It's not that just like they assign the stories that you will work, but you have to prioritize which one is having the highest priority. So that is like all will be part of the planning. So we will have a plan meetings scheduled and discussing all the user stories, uh, which of the team member, obviously. And the second phase is the analysis phase, where we'll have the discussion about the acceptance criteria, and also we define the final scope of the sprint, what is actually need to be delivered. And it is applicable to both DevOps engineers and developers. It's not like, and of course, we are not part of some parts of the implementations, but if you see that in the technical aspects, so these are all the phases that one should follow. And the third phase is the design phase. Design could be, for example, for the DevOps engineers, we need to design the CI/CD pipelines. We need to define how the process flows from one stage to the another stage. And also, for example, if if you want to design a infrastructure, so you need to create an infrastructure that we need to uh, create an architecture diagram and deliver to the product owners or in the uh, meetings. And of course, the implementation phase will have the coding started, like developers or the DevOps engineer. For the DevOps engineer, it's the CI/CD pipelines that they start developing it. And for the developers, they start developing the code on the user stories assigned to them. And the fifth stage is like kind of unit testing. So most of the unit test will be written by the developers in most of the cases, but in some companies, they'll have a separate testing team where they will develop the test cases. And as a DevOps engineers, we come into picture, making them their test cases into integrated with the CI/CD pipelines. So we integrate the test cases in the CI/CD pipeline, and then we deliver to the testing teams for them to test it. Because every automation that is integrated with the CI/CD, so that we need to take care, we need to help them to set up. And the final stage is like the deployment and maintenance. So once the product is deployed, we need to monitor uh, uh, the product that is actually deployed. Like we have a multiple tools like Prometheus, CloudWatch, all those stuff. And but when it comes to CI/CD, we don't have actually any thing integrated with the CID to monitor this. We have to rely on New Relic, all the stuff that which we are not going to cover in this course. But what you need to really care about working as with the CI/CD pipelines is to have the security standards, and also you need to have a SAS static analysis setup needs to be done in the CI/CD using SonarQube, and also you need to have a image scanning using Trivi or Sneak. Sneak is the latest tool that most of the companies use. Again, its purpose is to scan the images that we are building, if any vulnerabilities that they found. So, and also we need to also have implemented the secrets leak steps, so that every time before it is building a source code, it will first check the if any developers have like hard coded their API tokens in the source code. So everything we need to find it before it actually went into the production, or if any security teams. Many companies will have a security teams that they will keep on I mean they'll do a tracking of the everything that you develop, or and they'll scan your the repositories. They'll have their own checks of finding if anything something is leaking, because it might damage the entire. Because in some cases, right, in my company we have a CISO. So CISO is a security guys, folks. They'll scan the AWS accounts. So if any extra privileges that they, for example, if you have a IAM role, you provided any extra privileges that you assign a resource other than what is actually required. So the CISO will find out this, and then in some cases they'll actually shut down the AWS account itself, because in my project all the AWS account will be handled by the security teams. So if any compromise happens, so they'll literally shut down the AWS accounts. That might uh, went into issues like if some apps are running, so some developers are testing, that might cause an issues. Okay, and yeah, I'll take up if you have any questions the exam session. So I'll just continue my. Okay, so the other thing that you guys should, if you guys already know, just bear with me, because for the others who not sure about the fundamentals, I'm just covering for them, so that it will be easy whenever we start looking into the CI/CD concepts, or when we are like actually doing the project. That time it will be beneficial for the folks. So CI/CD. So as you guys know, like it is continuous integration and continuous deployment or delivery. So when it comes to the CI/CD, so one thing you guys do understand is like, so these days the pipeline setup is like growing literally in terms of implementing the best practice. So in traditional CI/CD, what we generally note till now is like, so we have a source code. So we build the source code, and then whatever the build artifacts that we get, we upload those in the NXS repository, and we deploy those artifacts in the target. The target, like since we are building without the Docker, so just generally the artifacts will be pushed to the EC2 instance or any VMs. So, but if it is a like microservice based application, this is a standalone application. And if it is a microservice based applications, what we do, we have the source code, and then we build the source code using Docker file, uh, create a Docker file, and whatever the file that we build, we get an image, right? And then we push this image to the ECR, and then from the ECR, the image gets deployed to the EKS. This is like micro-based application deployment that we implement, and we also have the GitOps kinds of deployment where it follows the same steps, but the final step will have a Argo CD. What it does is, right, so any changes that you make to the GitHub, Argo CD will detect those changes, and then it deploys to the EKS. For example, you have a new build that developers build and push to the GitHub repository with the latest image tag. So generally I mean, in the before Argo CD or GitHub style, what we do actually, so we update the GitHub repository with the latest tag, and from there we're going to deploy that to the EKS. But since we have the GitHub style of way of for deploying changes, so we integrate the Argo CD setup to the, basically we install the agent on the EKS that will track of any changes to the GitHub, and then it will automatically fetch changes. So there is one style of it, a way of doing. And other thing is CI/CD is not all about deploying to the EKS or EC2. There are other services that we're gonna deploy. For example, if you are deploying on the AWS, we set up CI/CD pipelines for the Lambda. We also set up CI/CD pipeline for deploying to the auto scaling. And we also set up CI/CD pipelines for deploying to the ECS or Elastic Beanstalk. Not all companies will always use EKS because EKS is like little complex to set up and maintain. And each companies, if they have a one or two microservices, why they have to create the EKS setup everything? Why they have to uh, containerize applications? That's a little complex, right? But yeah, I understand like ECS requires the Docker image build. But if they always try to look the simplest way of setting up or deploying their application, they don't make the things complicated. Because in my previous project, we deploy on the EKS clusters, but in my current project, we deploy on only these services for multiple, like we support only these CI/CD style of deploying for multiple projects. We don't actually use EKS. We don't actually want to make things complicated uh, when setting up the uh, uh, the end target service that we want to use. And we also have a CI/CD pipeline for the cloud front to deploy the changes, but we rarely use uh, this kind of deployment. And it's not CloudFront, like it's CDN. So CloudFront is like AWS services. So we use CDN content delivery network kind of pipeline we have. We do that as well. So yeah, so when it comes to from the interview perspective, what they actually look is, so earlier if you just say these stages, they'll just queue, like they'll just say okay. But now things have changed. They expect you to explain the each stage does and what the outcome is actually coming from that specific stage. So we need to very specific when we are explaining the CI/CD pipeline. So just to recap, so it's CI, we actually build everything and we run unit test cases. We scan the source code using Sonar scans, and we also scan the Docker images that we created. And then we send it all the reports, the scanner, I mean, this code scanning reports, we send it to the Sonar dashboard. If it is anything related to image scanning, we send it to to the jobs memory. We add it to the jobs memory of the CI job so that it will be easy for the developers to view. So we need to think of in the standards that we need to maintain as whenever we are implementing the CI/CD pipeline. Just we need to keep in mind from the developers focus because because we need to deliver the software as early as possible. We need to find the bugs as early as possible. So if we detect the changes earlier, that saves us a lot of time for the developers to detect and fix those issues. Yeah, and that is all about like in the integration that we does. When it comes to the deployment and delivery, so deployment is something whenever you trigger a job that will automatically deploy to the lower environments. When I say lower environments, it could be dev or test environments. So no one will use continuous deployment directly deploying to the prod. directly deployment to prod is not a best practice. So for that, you have to rely on the delivery. So what in delivery, continuous delivery happens. So before you do a deployment to the production, we need to get approvals from the release managers. So the release managers could be anything, anyone from the dev lead or anyone from the SRE lead, SRE or cloud or DevOps lead should review the changes before deploying to the production. And one thing to note is whoever approving the release is the primary responsibility for the changes that is going to the production. So if anything that happened that went to deploy to the production, if something breaks, and whoever is responsible for approving the release, you should be responsible for that. That is one standard everyone will adopt, like making sure that the changes are deploying correctly to the production. Okay. So yeah, let's move on to let's create a CIC. I mean, create an EC2 instance, and then have the little touch with the basic uh, Linux commands that will be useful during the CI/CD setups. So I'm just creating a EC2 instance, not nothing fancy. So I'm just creating pipeline. I mean the EC2 instance name, and then selecting the server as Ubuntu, and then creating. I mean selecting the key pair that I already have, and then selecting the security group that required. I think that's it. Like I'm keeping the rest of all things as it is because I'm not doing super complex things in my EC2 instance. I'm just trying to show you the different commands that we use. So I'm just clicking on EC2 instance. Okay, so my EC2 instance is created. So let's try to connect it. Okay, yeah. Hmm. So I hope you guys can see my Git bash terminal or uh, the EC2 instance I just logged in. Can you guys confirm whether you're able to see? Can anyone, someone, can you guys see my screen? Thank you. So right now I'm in my EC2 instance. So the first thing that I'm going to is uh, I want to talk about the variables. So why do you need a variables? So in CI/CD setup, so we basically assign a variables to uh, like the variable name could be anything related to uh, the EKS namespace name that comes from the inputs or any variable that comes in the previous step that gets that's assigned to a variable and save it in its environment variable that we will use it later in the job. So right now I am in terminal. For example, if you want to create a variable, let's say I'm giving a variable name and then I mean clicking enter. So now the variable is saved in my session, not in the actual, it will not save in the here, the system. So whatever the variable that I printed, if I try to print it, So whenever you're trying to access a variable, so you have to access with the dollar symbol. So that way we are able to fetch that value. And if you want to assign a variable to uh, the system environment variables, so what that for that you have to use is you have to use the environment I mean export, and then you give the name, and then you give the value. So if you try to see, so you will see the variable name here. So it will be saved permanently. So that's the difference. If you just simply use the variable, try to save, it will be saved in the session. As soon as the session terminates, you will not be able to access that variable. But if you want to save it permanently, you have to save it in the system environment variables. You have to use export. So once you use the export, you just use the dollar and the variable name for the variable to access it. So this is, I mean, super useful during the CI/CD setups, which I'm gonna show later in the classes. So the other thing you need to understand is like the command is the find command. So find is basically used to find a specific file in the folder or subfolders. Let's create some files. I'm creating a project folder, SRC, and then I'm creating some files. Let's say file one inside the SRE folder, and then I'm creating another file inside the same directory. So right now, if I see, I have a project folder. If you see fully, like I mean, it is not installed. The tree will basically give uh, the directory structure. Let's install that tree command. Now try to run the tree. So right now you can see you have a project folder root, and then inside the folder folder you have a source folder. Then inside the source folder you have two files, file one and file two. So for the demo that using the find, what we are trying to do, we are trying to find the files that ends with the txt in the project folder. So for that I'm using find project and then hyphen iname, which is kind of case insensitive, and also passing the files that ends with .txt. And then I'm giving hyphen type, which means is hyphen type here, which means that I'm only searching only the files. So if you hit enter, you will be able to get the files inside the folder. So this is useful something if you build something, and if you want to proceed, you will build further only if a specific file is present. So that time you will check whether the file is present or not, and then you proceed further. And the other important thing is the JSON parsing using JQ. So in general, we use JQ. For example, if you have a JSON kind of file, which developers will have it. And if you want to fetch something from the JSON, you typically use JQ. So right now, if you see, so this is the JQ syntax. With the JQ, we can query around the JSON file. So let's do that. Let's create a small JSON. First, I'll create in the notepad and then so let's create a first a JSON, and then I'm giving a JSON file name. And then the first parameter I'm trying to give is the application name. So the application name could be anything related to what kind of the application, like hot services. And then every JSON ends with like a comma, and then you define another parameter like what version. Then comma, and then you can also pass the part bucket. Some like for example, you have like built something and you got some artifacts. So that artifacts you should push to the S3 bucket or any other target system. So that time you have to define the bucket that you need to pass. Here we pass it the bucket name, and then copy it and then go to a terminal. So just check whether the file is created or not. Trying to read that file. So my JSON file is created. So now I want to parse this JSON. So you need to remember that whatever the commands that we are performing, we are not going to perform directly on the EC2 instance at the time of CI/CD setups. Every command that you define will be part of the step itself in the workflow. That way you can automate the unautomated things. Whatever you are doing manually, that you can automate. And what other thing is right. So whenever developers ask us to set up a CI/CD pipeline, so typically they run the commands on the local first. For example, they run the commands to build the source code, compile it, like push it to the artifacts in some cases, and then then they try to run the application the locally. So as the DevOps engineer, you need to know the manual steps they are doing. Maybe probably you need to set up a call with them, understand what they're actually doing, what the expected outcome from them. All those like any configurations that rely that we need to integrate as part of the CI/CD pipelines. So everything we should discuss because as we DevOps engineers, we don't like know because we know the art. I mean the concept ways of setting up the automations, but in terms of the configurations, we need to rely on the developers. So we need to have a strong communication between the developers and the DevOps engineers working in the real time. That is 100% sure. We cannot simply sit ideal, say like thinking that they will come and then they will provide. So that is not an best practice or because every like as soon as the developer code is completed, every eyes or every focus will come to us only. Like we need to help the developers to move their code till the production. So they have and any issues that they like that comes during the entire cycle that everyone will come and they will blame us. So we should not take any blames. So everything we should put and push the ball on the other codes. Like and so in order to push the code, so you have to 100% sure what you're developing, what you're pushing, what you're building, what you're developing is as part of the pipeline steps. That you should be very clear. So I have the JSON created, and then let's pass this JSON. So while passing it, so I'm assigning it to a variable. So whatever the pass output that I got, so I'm assigning it to a variable. So I'm right now I'm creating a variable, and then I'm passing in using JQ. So and then I'm like hyphen R is like basically give a readable format without double quotes. We need to get a like plain string. With JQ, you actually get the value of the JSON. This is a key and this is a value in the JSON. So in order to get the value, so you need to point to the key first using JQ, and then uh, I'm giving the key value, which is in our case is application name, and then I'm passing the file name, whatever the file that we created of is config.json, then I'm passing here. So let's understand again. So this JQ will extract the value of application as a name, and then it will assign a variable. The variable that currently we created is the app name. So we can make use of this variable later in the further steps. So I'm hitting enter. Let's see, like there is an issue with the commands. Let's fix that. I missed the single quote here. Okay. So now if I want to access a variable, you can simply use echo and then. So now we were able to fetch the cart services uh, dynamically. So the other thing you need to understand is uh, uh, so this right now this is a sample JSON, but in the real time the JSON comes as I mentioned from the developers. Uh, or you can have its own JSON in the project depending upon a specific use case. And if you want to fetch the some values from here, we use JQ in the pipeline steps. Okay, so let's clear this and let's go to the conditions, the shell scripting. Uh, so mostly we check using if conditions to check a variable. If it is a matching, then it should proceed to the specific deployment. For example, let's create a shell script first. Okay, I'm creating a shell script. And then I'm just creating a variable env, and then I'm just setting up to a variable. And then I'm writing a if condition saying if my env, which is in our case is TCR, if the environment is equal to int, it is not exactly matching. For example, like everything it starts for integration of the development environment. So if it is matches, then or for the easy, you can say test environment. Because in my project we name it as in different words, and it of course it varies for different projects and different names like dev stage. In my project we use integration test current, demo account. We also have finally prod account, which is similar for other projects. But just for others to understand easily, so let's name it as dev test. And then deploy to dev environment. If it is a variable is matching, then we have to proceed. And if not, if the environment is test case, then deploying to test environment. Else deploy anything like if nothing is matching, then obviously it is not specific to environment, right? So unknown environment. Let's close this if. So like right now it's a like simple syntax. Like I don't want directly to make the things complicated, but as we actually work on multiple projects, so we actually use if conditions to query something uh, in the real time. The variable is specific variable is fetching this, then it should perform the specific steps related to that using that variables. Similar if the variable matches in other step, you perform some series of steps integrated as part of that variable. And let's run this. So before running, let's give the script permissions. So there is an issue with my script. It's not if actually F5. So we are deploying to the test environment, like which is we have outputted the variable value as test. That's why it is printing. So knowing the querying something condition and checking the conditions and going back the next step, the condition is matching and then also setting up the default conditions is very important when you are working in automations. And then the other thing is like the packaging. So whenever you are building, if let's say you have a bunch of scripts in your source code, and developers comes to us and they ask us to zip everything, those scripts, and put it in the S3 bucket or in the EC2 instance. So the use case may come from anywhere, and it varies from project to project. But what we need to really think of it is making sure that you understand the fundamentals of which one you to use based on the situation. Because as DevOps engineers, we work on multiple automations and multiple scenarios, and every day is a learning for us that we need to think clear. If anyone was already working, they might already know. If you are already working, if you are someone trying to switch, uh, don't just like do like if you like, for example, I'm not saying in a wrong way. If you joined a course and if you've done some projects, don't really think that that might fix your issues like being a DevOps engineer for a longer term. So you need to really have a mindset to learn on daily basis. Right now we have the AI agents, so like making sure you are using the full features of the AI and then helping to complete the job. So you need to have that mindset of uh, creating automations. Because what really happens if you just do like done some fundamentals and done some project and then thinking that this should be enough, and then if you are going to the project and then sitting there, the use cases might come from different uh, what the, different than what you are actually practiced. So that time you should not struggle. So that's why I'm giving little warning for you guys or who are planning to trying to switch to the DevOps. Always think whenever you're doing automation, understand the concepts first. What you are actually doing, whatever the outcome comes. Don't think that I'm giving lectures, but that's how it is because I don't want you guys to struggle anything during the working of the project. So right now I don't have zip in my Ubuntu machine. So I'm just installing the Ubuntu. I mean the zip packages in my Ubuntu machine. So for understand for help like for you guys to understand the packaging using zip. So what I'm trying to do is, so right now I have the uh, uh, all these files. Let's keep those, but let's create a new directory called publish. So I have this publish file directory, and then create a file and add some testing, add some context, and then redirect the output to a file. So what you need to understand is we have greater than symbol and then greater than enter, like two greater than symbols, obviously. The first greater than symbol we are using in the scripts to basically override everything, whatever the present in a file. If the file is not present, it will create it. And double greater than symbol it will also create a new file if it is not present. But what it does is basically it will append, it will add it to the existing script, I mean existing data, whatever present in the file. So generally we use greater than. In some cases, if you want to try to append something, that time you will use this. So right now I'm just using greater than symbol to add, trying to create a file inside a publish folder. So I just hit enter, and then similarly, let's add another file. This time it could be any config data, and then add it in a folder. So if you check, you go to the publish folder and just check whether so you have the files. So let's go back to the previous tab. So now we can like what I want to do is right. I want to zip the files, whatever the files present in the publish. I want to zip the files. So for that, what we are doing, I'm going into the publish folder, and then I'm giving the another command in the same terminal. Ampersand 2 ampersand means that this like execute the second step only if this step is successful. What it meant is, let me complete this line and then I'll I want my files to be packaged in this format. I want the files to package what are the files in the current directory, and then I want to come back. So let's understand these steps. So CD, first it will go inside the publish folder, and then zip package, like where what it does, this step is, right, it will compress all the files in the current directory, in the, which means the current directory is right now in the publish, right? So thinking, you think in the, like in your mind that you actually went into the CD publish, and then you are zipping inside the publish. What you are zipping, you are compressing all the files inside the current directory, which is in the publish directory, and then you are packaging it in the zip folder. And then you are giving the actual name of that the final artifact, and then you are whatever the files inside the publish folder, you are basically considering all of those files, and then you are going, I mean, coming back whatever the previous directory, which is my current directory. So if you just check, so if you look at it, you have the package files. So as soon as you have the package files, so you can upload these package files anywhere you want to upload. You can upload it in upload artifacts like a package that provided by GitHub Actions, or you can upload to the S3, whichever way. But packaging is, you need to really understand what how you are packaging the files, types of file package, because during this automations, the files that you are packaging is very, very important. You don't have to actually miss the important files that you require. For example, if you have a .NET application, generally in .NET application, what we actually build, we like the build artifacts would be the exe files, right? Which is, or the solution files, .sll files. So if someone who are already worked on .NET application, they might know aware of that .sll or .exe files they will get, which is very important for applications to run. Or if it is a Java-based applications, what you actually get is a jar or war file, depending upon the definition that you guys, the developers define in the pom.xml files. So these artifacts, for example, for the Java-based applications, what the build artifact folder that gets created is the target. So in target, everything will be placed, the jar files, everything. For a .NET application, what the build artifacts, like which we create a bin folder, inside a bin folder, we get the solution files or the .exe files. Uh, like anyway, I show again the folder structure of the application, Java applications or .NET application, because as a DevOps engineer, like I mentioned in the beginning of the course, they'll just give you the plain source code. So like knowing the minimals of the folder structure of a source code is very, very important. For example, Java-based application, you need to know the pom.xml files. You need to know if any setting files are there, what configuration we need to define. And as a DevOps engineers, we are not like written any source code development or anything we modify in their settings files. But in some, configurations that we try to help developers to add. For example, if you think at in the pom.xml file, we add the Maven URL, the build, like whatever the build artifact that gets created, that we're going to push to the target Maven repository, right? So for the push that happens to the repository, we need to add the Maven related configuration in pom.xml files. I'm just saying for one example, or we might not actually deal with their files. We just make use of the files. So scenarios like that, we use the package concepts. And the other thing is like, obviously, we use the date command in the real time. And then we frame it in a way that because the reason for using this date format is, right, suppose you are building something and the build artifacts will be vary on daily basis, right? So we need to give a proper because after, like, let's say you have built something, continuously testing and building the artifacts and pushing to the next repository. And after 10 days, you will have a bunch of artifacts that are present in the next repository. So the naming should be proper, like on which date the artifact is created. So this naming tag, you assign it to the artifacts. So if you use the date format and assign it to a variable, so that it will be easy for whoever goes to the next repository, if they see the artifact name, so then the artifact name will be unique. And these dates will also be used whenever you are trying to build the Docker images. So you tag it to the Docker images, which is so in that case it will be unique. So we also assign it not only with the date tag, so we also assign it another tag called git SHA. So with git SHA, every commit you made to the CI/CD workflow, it will get a commit SHA that will be specific to the job. So that commit SHA will be unique, and that will be also assigned to along with the date. And this whole tag we will be assigned to the build artifacts or the ECR tag. Anyway, this will be discussed in the upcoming or during the project. But just to remember that we need to have your artifacts or the images should be unique. So you actually, we will not directly use the latest. Latest is not the best way of tagging something. Uh, uh, so you need to follow a standard that should be unique, and everyone should be like, if someone sees the files present in that repository, they should be unique, and then they should identify the specific dates that they push the artifacts. I think we discussed a lot more. I think I'll stop for now. And tomorrow we're going to discuss the quick overview on the Git commands and GitHub different UI features that you should know as a DevOps engineer that we also work on day-to-day activities. Okay. Yeah, I think you guys can unmute yourself like one by one if you have any questions. Let's have a good discussion now. It should not be anything that we discuss now. It should be anything that you guys should know.
Yeah,
We can.
Surya, this is Bala. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Bala.
Yeah, good evening. I hope that is night for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I have one doubt in this GitHub action plan. Can you add the CS, I mean, security tools as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
Try to incorporate security policies. I mean, try to explain those as well because nowadays those are most important things
Yes.
while doing
Yes.
CSCD practicing.
Do you have any specifics? For example, the current project that I have is like the sonar scans and the
Yeah,
tree
so Sona's
scans,
plan. Yeah.
and
Previous
it is,
Sona. Yeah, ahead.
and also GitHub security leaks step also integrated. Yeah, all these.
Oh,
If there are anything other than this that during interviews they're asking, before we actually release the project, I'll try to be ready with that. If you have any specifics, I'll try to incorporate to our project. But if
apart
it
from
is
that, okay. Yeah, yeah.
okay,
These three, you know,
perfect, sure,
mostly
yeah,
these three are everybody using, and I'm pretty sure of it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, sure,
and try to explain those tools as well. I mean, little bit exposure.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
How
yeah,
interview they're asking questions on that. I mean, yeah,
sure.
that's
Hi Surya,
Yeah, who's this?
this is Rama.
Hey, hi Ram.
ఇక్కడ అందరు కెన్ ఐ స్పీక్ ఇన్ తెలుగు ఈజ్ ఇట్ ఫైన్ ఆర్
I don't know like if how many
ఓకే
of you from other
ఓకే
state,
ఫైన్ నో ప్రాబ్లం
but yeah, you can. That's okay. I'll like anyway translate that to English. But yeah,
ఓకే
feel free. Yeah.
no actually I am attending the interviews as well now. Day before yesterday they are asking one question in the sonar cube up to 75% is success, the step will be going to the next step, means next block like that. For suppose if it is not reaching the 75%, how you can write in the GitHub actions like that, they want to explain this thing to me.
I didn't understand the last part. What if it is not 75 percentage? How? I
If it
didn't
is
get the
not
last.
success, if it is not up to the mark 75%, it is not marking, then how we can write in the sonar queue? And they are asking normally in the Jenkins we are write the sonar queue plugin, we will download
Hmm.
the sonar queue plugin. In GitHub actions, how we can write for the sonar cube like that, they are asking. I thought this is simple questions only, but I am not aware of this GitHub actions. That is the reason I am not
Oh,
able to
oh,
answer the questions.
okay. Did they ask this in GitHub Actions, asking you to explain?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So in real time, if it is not matching the coverage, so like in my project, my coverage is 85%.
Mm.
If the coverage is not matching, the pipeline will fail. It will stop then and there itself. And then the developer should see the Sonar Cube results and they have to fix. We need to basically, we don't need to intimate because we hand out the pipeline and we give it to them. But during the setting up the Sonar pipelines, we have the Sonar steps that integrate as part of the pipeline. Just like for the Jenkins, you have a Sonar Cube plugin. For the GitHub Actions, whether we use the Sonar Cube custom action that is already built by someone, or we use the different steps integrated in the CI/CD pipelines, where you define the Sonar Cube host URL token and the coverage XML file, and then Sonar token. As for any pipeline to run on the Sonar scans, you need to have a Sonar token to authenticate with the Sonar Cube. And then we set it up the coverage rules on which rule the pipeline should continue or further. So code coverage we also define. If it is like more than 75, it should pass, or if it should be more than that, below 75, it should fail. It is also a step that you integrate the coverage. Whatever the coverage results, we try to fetch as a part of the pipeline, and then we validate. If it is like using if conditions, you validate the coverage. If it is greater than 75, proceed, or if it is less than 75, stop it then and there itself, or fail the job mandatorily. I mean, purposely.
Okay. In our sessions, you can show to me very clearly those things, and they're asking in the interviews are asking also quality gates. What is the quality gates like that?
Yeah, quality gate. That's what I was talking. Quality gate is like every company will have their checkpoints, right? They will
Okay.
define their rules thresholds. In our case, if the gate is like if it's more than 75%, the quality gate which indicates is okay. If it is less than 75, the quality gate is like failed. Pipeline will stop fails. That's what quality gate meant. It's a checkpoint you can think of.
Okay. Course in our course, you can show to me.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure, definitely. Anyone else?
In this video, where you can means you.
Yeah, I'll upload, and I'll share it to the drive.
Okay.
So yeah, we have the group, right? I hope you are
Um,
part of that group. So
we can
everything will be put.
am I correct?
Sorry?
We can download that.
Yeah.
Video.
You can download it. You can because
Okay.
during the direct fetch from the drive, you will might face internet issues or reload issues. Yeah, you can download. I'll give download access as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you don't have any other questions, anyone have any questions? You can, if you have like some questions that comes after this session, feel free to ping me, or you can call me directly. Directly. Anything related to anything related, not just the concepts, anything related to anything in terms of career guidance. Just ping me. Feel free to call me directly. If you don't have any, guys don't have anything. Just like have the system ready in terms of installing the Git Bash, AWS account, GitHub account. If you already have, that's great. If you don't have, just start setting up those. Visual Studio, very important. Because the Copilot classes that we provide, right? You should have the Visual Studio installed to make use of the features. Copilot sessions may be I talked to the guy who provides the training. So he said he will be free maybe on Wednesday and Thursday. Because before we start actually GitHub post, I want you guys to be comfortable with Copilot features, so that way it will be easy doing the automations. Show you that you make use of the automations using the AI. That way you can speed up your development process. Okay, I think that's all I have for today. I'll share the recording sometime once the Zoom is processed. So just make sure you are ready with everything that I discussed, the tools, Visual Studio, everything, so that it will be easy for you guys. And thank you so much for joining. Yeah, I'll share the class notes as well. Everything. You don't need to worry. Well, whatever they discussed on a specific class, everything we'll provide. Yeah, thank you so much. If you don't have any other question, any questions further, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have you like a wonderful weekend? Weekdays, because it's a Monday is hectic for you guys. So yeah, have a
Thank you.
good day, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.
Thank you.